open for three. Dagger!
Man, I love the sound of that dagger. Hello. Welcome to Well Beyond the Arc. I'm Manoli.
And I'm Montana.
And we're back from holiday break. And as always, we'll be talking NBA basketball with you for the next hour or so. Glad you can be with us. Remember, our live show is interactive, so please put your comments in the chat. And if you haven't done so already, please hit that like and subscribe button to the Yankee and the Brit Sports Group. Be greatly appreciated. There's a lot of great shows, great podcasts, and other content on the Yankee and the Brit Sports Group. So it would be appreciated greatly if you guys hit that subscribe button. Montana, how the hell are you, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good. You know, I'm kind of glad to be back in the 70s and 80s because that weather in that Midwest, man, I don't miss that at all. But I hear it's not too bad in Nebraska right now. I'm leaving it. It's like 49 right now, one of my buddies said. So not too bad there right now, but it felt like -30, like legitimately felt like -30 one of the nights I was there. Like it was actually, that's how the temperature felt. It was insane. It was a little different than the nights I'm used to here. But
welcome to my world, brother. Welcome to my world. Glad you're doing well. I see your Kwame Brown fan club today. Shout out Kwame Brown.
I don't know if he's watching, but I'm just trying to win points with him. I actually I almost had an interview with him a couple of years ago when I started doing podcast stuff.
Really?
But one of the things I said actually made him a little bit ticked off. So I didn't end up getting that interview. He did respond to me, but we kind of went back and forth and that never happened. So I'm just trying to win some points. Kwame Brown, I hear you're trying to become an NBA ref. Maybe that'll help the reffing be a little bit better. So you can actually make the league a better place maybe. So maybe he ends up doing an interview with me too. You never know. But
Kwame Brown is an NBA ref. We're going to talk about the NBA officiating and a lot more here coming up here today. Before we get started, we're going to do something we usually do at the end of the show. We're going to plug the other stuff we do. And this isn't the only spot where you can find us here on Well Beyond the Arc and with the Yankee and the Brit Sports Group. We have other projects we work on. Montana, you want to tell our loyal followers where else they can find you?
Absolutely. So I have a couple other shows going on right now. I have a show called The Conner and Heffernan Show. We are a weekend show. We'll air anywhere between Saturday and Monday. Usually Monday's our drop time, but we just dropped an episode last weekend. We talk about a lot of stuff, a lot of good things in there. It's a pretty long show. It's about an hour and 50 minutes, but you don't have to watch the whole show. In the descriptions, we give segment markers so you can watch the NFL segment if that's all you want to watch, or the NBA. You can watch whatever segment you want. And this weekend, we are doing a special NFL wild card preview and playoff preview, and that will be uploaded on Saturday. So look out, the Conner and Heffernan Show. Our newest episode will drop this Saturday. We'll do a playoff preview, and then I have another show, Purple and Gold Zone. It's all things Lakers. I will be dropping my newest episode actually tomorrow on YouTube and on Spotify, so be looking for that.
And as someone who's listened to the show before, Montana digs in deep on his Lakers. I don't want to go as far as saying uncensored, but it's uncensored. Well, anything else, Montana? I think we got a couple other ones, right?
I think that's all I've got going right now.
Okay. Well, you can find my blog website, thesportspageblog.com. Sports Page Blog. I've posted, I believe, 68 articles to date since last November. So just posted one about LeBron James at age 38 and how it's remarkable on how he's performing at this level and how his performance this year compares to other NBA Hall of Famers at their age 38 season. So please check that out. And also, as of about a week or two ago, I've agreed to partner with a website new news website called usanews.com as a sports content writer. They'll be featuring a lot of my articles from the sportspageblog.com. So appreciate you guys check that out. And thank you everybody for the support. They found me through social media, through maybe even this, I don't know if it was from the podcast or from my website, but appreciate everyone's support there and really excited to be partnering with usanews.com. So be sure to check that out. Montana, it's been a couple weeks. Our teams have played quite a few games, and believe it or not, our teams have the exact same record as games start today. So let's start with State of My Squad. Montana, your rant about the Lakers starts now.
So I'm going to be honest. I'm actually not super, displeased with them as of recent. They've gone on a pretty good run, and that's been since AD has been out. I was really worried when Anthony Davis went down. I was like, that's it. We built up steam, but we were still losing some games. We didn't look consistent enough. Our squad didn't look complete enough. Arguably, since Anthony Davis has gone down, our squad as a whole looks better. Thomas Bryant's putting up monster numbers. We're seeing Russell Westbrook continue to have a sixth man of the year. If he does not win sixth man of the year, I will be shocked. If he continues to be a sixth man on this team, I think it's his award. He is playing, he's putting up great numbers. Thomas Bryant, Russell Westbrook, they're putting up really solid numbers. LeBron James has been going on a tear. Obviously, we're going to talk more about him later, but he's been going on a tear. But again, he's another player that is struggling with some injuries. So the health of this team is concerning to me, but the depth of this team is starting to look a lot more complete. And there is also a rumor that this week, and it could be even today as we are recording, at some point they are doing a workout for DeMarcus Cousins potentially in Los Angeles, and that is the player we need. If we get DeMarcus and we have Thomas Bryant and we have we're going to be, I think, building that depth up is huge. We're currently sitting 12th in the West, but it's a close. We could easily, be in that top 8 before All-Star break. So I think the key is this squad staying healthy, and I still believe that we need to add a few pieces. I know that there's been a couple of rumors of a couple different pieces. Nothing has happened. I'm not shocked. It's the Lakers organization, so no shock there that moves haven't happened. But I do think that the Lakers are on the right path. They have their next 2 games against the Mavs and the 76ers. If LeBron is back and good, I have him in both of those games. So I have him going 2-0, 2 back pretty good, hard-fought matches. So I've got the Lakers building up, and hopefully we can hope to see Anthony Davis before that All-Star break.
Yeah, I got to comment on a couple things. One, I'm excited for Boogie's opportunity. I think he should be in the league. I think that'd be a great fit for the Lakers, get some additional depth there. I mean, even if they're taking a flyer on him, a 10-day, I think I think that's a great idea there. Hopefully it all works out. And also, Smoke with the comment of a trivia game between, and those of you listening on Spotify can't see the comment. Thanks, Jay, for putting that back up there. A Yankee and the Brit versus Connor and Heffernan show trivia game hosted by me. We got to make that happen. We can make this happen. We can make this happen. All right, that so far is the comment of the night here at 9 minutes into the show, but we still got a lot of show to go. As for my Bulls, just like Montana's Lakers sit at a record of 19-22, exactly halfway through this 2022-23 season. Since my little rant from our last episode where I was just absolutely disgusted with my squad, the Bulls went 8-4. Closed the gap and getting within 3 games of 500. Lost to the Celtics last night. Unfortunately, lost DeMar DeRozan to a quad injury. Hopefully, it's not too serious, but the quad, you never know, especially in basketball. They've they've continued to drive me nuts, beating the really good teams. I think they're now 8-2 against Boston, Milwaukee, Brooklyn. I'm not sure who else goes in there, but they're actually 8-2 against some of the really good teams. And then we turn around and lose a game to Houston, who's got one of the worst records in the league, at home by 15, inexcusable. But at least I'm seeing some fight from this team. At least they're
Oh, I think we might have paused for a quick second. But no, like he's saying about both of our teams, they're both pretty evenly matched with where they're at.
Nope, there we go. We're back.
There we go.
Or at least I was back. I think that might have been me on my end. Supposedly Lonzo Ball is improving in his injury rehab, so supposedly we'll get him back by the end of the season. Fingers crossed on that. But right now, Montana, our teams are at 19-22. A little bit better than from what we talked about last time. So fingers crossed that the arrow continues to point up. So
I think it will. I think, like I was saying when you paused briefly, our teams are in a pretty similar situation. I'm kind of glad it's like that. At least one of us isn't all the way at the bottom and all the way at the top. We're right there next to each other. So that makes it a little easier to talk about both teams.
Hey, if our teams are still in the play-in at the end of the season or in the play-in, number one, it's gonna be nerve-wracking. Like I like to call heart attack watch. We might have to have a special play-in preview episode of Well Beyond the Arc.
I hope not.
But let's hope we don't have to get we don't have to get that far. Let's both go for the 6 seeds. Well, over the past 2-3 weeks, there has been an insane amount of great scoring performances. I remember when scoring 30 in a game was a big deal. I remember when scoring 40 in a game was a big deal. But hold my beer, says Luka Doncic and others. especially Luka Doncic, over break, he had 3 games of over 50 points in 5 days, including a game where he scored 60 points, had 21 rebounds, and 10 assists in a comeback overtime win against the New York Knicks, which was just a crazy game overall. A number of these crazy games, Montana, which, and again, I mentioned Luka, but what are some of the other notable ones from the last couple of weeks that just had you saying, wow?
Well, I'd say the one performance. Now, again, the Luka's been stringing together multiple performances. I think as a player to get consecutive ones, it's the most impressive for that. But the most impressive performance, in my opinion, has to be Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell just put up an insane performance. Just 71 points. We see 50. We see 50 a lot. I would say we see 50 quite a bit. Not quite a bit, but it's pretty common to see a 50 piece in a season. We don't see a 70 piece very often. If I'm correct, was the last one Devin Booker?
I believe so, yeah.
And that was over. I mean, was that 2018? I mean, it has been a while. We do not see this very often. And the crazy thing is, Donovan Mitchell had 11 assists on top of that. 71 points and 11 assists. I mean, the numbers are crazy. Donovan Mitchell is definitely starting, in my opinion, to look even more like a potential MVP candidate, if not this season, for the coming future. And then Giannis. Giannis is known to have big games. He had a 55-point performance. He is one of the players that it's not that he's back and forth and he'll be cold and hot, but he doesn't always seem to focus all of his attention for the scoring side of games. He's an all-around player. Within that game, he had 2 steals, 7 assists, and 19 rebounds. So you're looking at him put up numbers, not just scoring. But when he does it all, when he puts up the scoring and everything else, that team is unstoppable. That Bucks team is special, even when he's just doing some of it. But when he's doing all of it, and yeah, got to rep that proud, man. That's the jersey to have on right now for sure. So Giannis had himself a great performance. If we were ranking them, which we're not really doing that, but if we were ranking them, I would have to give it to Mitchell just because of that 71. But that performance by Giannis was really, really solid. And I think that Bucks team, again, they're not top in the East, but they're still playing like they're one of the top teams for sure.
Yeah, I mean, they're struggling a little bit with Chris Middleton out again. I think he played one game for like 29 minutes or something like that. But, I mean, you talked about Giannis' career high game. What about I think he had a game of 45 points and 23 rebounds, and then another game of like 40-some points and almost 20 rebounds. It just, between Luka and Giannis, they're putting up multiple games of crazy performances. It's just nuts. I mean, we'll get back to the Donovan Mitchell game in a second. I have some thoughts on that. There's also a game where Klay Thompson with Steph Curry out put up a vintage performance of 54 points in a win. We've been critical of Klay Thompson not looking like his old self, but still a very able shooter and very able all-star level player. But it was good to see Klay, erupt for a 54-point game. There's also Pascal Siakam with a 49-point game, which ho-hum compared to these other games that we're talking about. 49 points in Madison Square Garden for the Raptors. Just a number of insane stat lines. I don't know if we're missing any, but all of what we just mentioned, the multiple Luka games, the multiple Giannis games, Donovan Mitchell, Klay Thompson, the Siakam game I just mentioned, and we haven't even got to some of the other 40-point game performances. All of those happened in the last 2-3 weeks while we're out on break, which is just insane. I don't know if we're missing any others, but the only other ones I can think of are just ho-hum 40-point games. I know DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine both had a couple. I think Joker had one thrown in there as well. But I mean, just the fact that all this happened over the last 3 weeks is insane. I did say something about the Donovan Mitchell, and I'm going to hate up just for a little bit on this Donovan Mitchell game. Number one, props to him, 71 points. And in fact, those 11 assists help create 99 points, which were the total number of points created, the second most in the history of the NBA behind Wilt Chamberlain's 104 points created. And that was when Wilt had 100 points and 2 assists back in, I believe it was 1962, which is crazy enough. But the only reason I'm going to hate on the Donovan Mitchell performance a little bit is that he should have never got to 71. And there was a missed call that we'll talk about here in a little bit. He had 57 points at the end of regulation, but it should have never went to overtime. At the same time, though, give him credit. The Bulls didn't stop him when they kept playing, and he got to 71 points and 11 assists. But we'll get more to that when we talk officials. All of these individual performances, all of the scoring, we see games regularly in the 140s and 150s. Where's this offense coming from? Is it Montana? Is it because the players are more skilled, or is it a bad defense?
I would say it's a mix of both. I don't think we can put it all on bad defense, because bad defense is very obvious, and that's been something that's been plaguing the league for a little while, and it's only getting worse. But at the same time, the speed of the game is just advancing, and there's other parts of the game that it's just getting faster. A part of that has to do with some of the lack of defense, and it's just the different way the game is progressing. But I would say that there's the tricky part with this is it's a really exciting thing, because especially if you're a Cavs fan, you're crazy about this. You love this. This is awesome. If you're a fan of any of these teams that had these performances, you're super, super excited about them, and it's awesome and it's great. And as a fan of the league, it's great. But the downside is part of that is the lack of defense, and the defense is kind of deteriorating from what it should be. There is defense, but it's defense for today's league. It's not defense from what I know you have watched, even from what I have watched. It is not the defense that has made the game more exciting, but it also is just picking up pace. And so I think it's kind of a pros and cons situation, but it's exciting to see whether you're a fan of the league or a fan of one of these teams, seeing performances like this many performances. It's insane. In this amount of time, it just shows that our game is just progressing.
I'm going to steal and paraphrase a quote from Isaiah Thomas from about the last week or so, when he said, "We are witnessing some of the best individual offensive performances in league history." We are. I mean, there's no doubt about that. No one can argue that. But he also said, in contrast, we're also witnessing some of the worst defense, individual defense, that we've seen in league history. And other guys that played in the 80s and 90s and even the early 2000s have commented on this. Larry Johnson, Grandmama himself, had said, Captain Obvious, he's like, well, we're seeing this great offense. That means we're not seeing great defense. Well, thank you very much, LJ. Thanks for playing our game. I think it's a combination of both. I do agree. The game evolves. Every decade, every era, we've seen the game evolve. 40 years ago, when the first three-point shot was introduced to the NBA, teams were taking less than 5 shots a game from three-point range. Steph Curry takes 5 three-point shots in a quarter. And Smoke, I thought the NBA outlawed defense too. I think that might be an unwritten rule there. They've put in rules to make the game less physical. I think that's part of it to prevent conflict and fights and things like that. I think the Malice in the Palace had something to do with that whole incident. And I also think the NBA wants to see skill prevail. And I do think, and I do believe that today's NBA player is more skilled than any era before, especially from a shooting perspective. I mean, before the last, we'll say 10 years, when do you remember a guy outside of Dirk, who started in, I think, 1998, 99, somewhere around there? When did you see a 7-footer shooting threes consistently? I mean, Bill Laimbeer shot from the outside. Larry Bird was at 6'9". He was a good three-point shooter. But other than that, I mean, 7-footers weren't shooting threes. There is no post game in the NBA today. And in the 90s, that's all it was. Yeah, I miss the 80s and 90s too. I'm with you, Smoke. Player safety is more important. And I think the league is trying to take measures to prevent its stars from getting hurt, because us as fans, we want to see the stars. We want to see the best guys out there. We want to see scoring. But I think it's gotten too much on favoring the offense, and it's gotten a little ridiculous, in my opinion. I do think that eventually teams are going to adjust, just as they have in every era. The late 80s, early 90s brought the Jordan rules, where the Detroit Pistons came up with a series of rules, as you will, or strategies to help prevent Michael Jordan from beating them one by himself. And part of that was forcing someone else to beat you. I see that can totally happen today. In the late 2000s, Tom Thibodeau and Doc Rivers, with that Boston Celtics team that won the championship in 2008, devised some defensive schemes that teams eventually adjusted to. Now, today, everybody in the NBA runs a pick and roll. Yeah, we've seen that people are pushing to make the court bigger. That would be interesting, but I think that would just spread the floor out and make it even easier from offenses just to have more room to shoot and take away defense. Um, yeah, I think there's a number of things that can happen, but I do think it's a combination of both. Me personally, I like to see a little bit of defense, but I am not in any way suggesting we go back to the late 90s where teams were playing 90 to 80 games and things like that. Montana's over here shaking his head. He definitely doesn't want to go back to that era as well.
No, I think the game has progressed in a positive way, but I don't. There's also negatives. There's always going to be pros and cons in pretty much every progression like this. I just think that there are ways that they can keep this progression from completely deteriorating some of that intensity. And it's like, I get it, the image and everything, it does make sense. Player safety, because even without some of that intensity and some of that crazy stuff, we still have seen some pretty gruesome injuries happen without that.
Sure.
So
Sure.
I understand it, but I think there should be some level brought back. There should be something should be changed. Something should be done to at least kind of contain that and keep that intensity. But I'm just not sure. We don't really see that too much anymore. But yeah, there we go.
That's an interesting comment from King Cal, bringing back hand checking, a subtle adjustment.
No, yeah, that is.
You know, and I think you can still hand check around half court. It's just once you pass half court, you can't hand check. But that was a huge thing in the 90s. I know Derek Harper, when he played with the Knicks, that was a big thing. He wasn't the only one, but I just remember he's one that sticks out in my head there. So we'll see. I mean, right now, you know, it's a matter of have you seen this person, and that's NBA defenses on the side of milk cartons these days. But we shall see. It's only a matter of time until some coach comes up with a scheme to slow the game down a little bit. But by far, this is the most entertaining era of offensive basketball that we remember seeing. And I think part of that is also attributed to, we'll say, less than stellar NBA officiating this year. And Montana, you and I have talked about this a couple of times, but over the last couple of weeks, it's just gone to a different level of ridiculousness. I know I've watched at least a half dozen games in the last few weeks where I couldn't believe some of the calls that were made. Montana, do you see it as much, or am I losing my mind that I think that the NBA officiating has taken a step or 10 back this year?
No, you are absolutely. I mean, it has taken 10 at the minimum back. I think that we have seen, like we've talked about, it's kind of been regressing. We've seen the reffing go. We've seen it go all sorts of ways. No matter what era it's been, there's been bad calls throughout. We've always seen that, but it's not even so much the calls. It's just the way that the games are stopped, or there's just so many things that are unnecessary. I would say it's unnecessary. A lot of the reffing that goes on nowadays in the NBA is unnecessary on both sides, no matter what that means. So I just think we're seeing a lot of unnecessary calls, a lot of unnecessary situations, and a lot of games that could very well go a different way if certain ridiculous calls and ridiculous things aren't in place. Like you mentioned with that Donovan Mitchell performance, that would have gone a completely different way. There's just a lot of different things that can happen. There's a lot of things with reffing, and again, it's easy to miss stuff, but that's why you have more than one ref out there. So
Absolutely.
You have multiple sets of eyes to make sure you don't miss that stuff. So that's not an excuse.
Yeah. And either way, you know, the players have to play through that. You know, I don't want to come out here and say that NBA officiating is the sole reason why teams lose, like my Bulls, and I'll get to that in a second. But look, I think that there's an influx of younger, inexperienced referees in the league, as you know, some of the older veteran referees have started to retire and move away from the game. So that's part of it. And I think there's an adjustment period of that. I remember a time in the early 2000s where it was a similar situation. I don't know if I remember it being this bad inconsistent, but you know, there's a couple refs where, you know, I don't think they realize that fans tune in or fans go to the game to see the players and the teams play, not the refs. Some egregious technical foul calls that you haven't seen before for guys just literally looking at them funny. I remember that there was a Celtics game. I forgot who they were playing. It might have even been the Bucks on Christmas Day, where Jason Tatum just gave one of the refs a look, didn't say anything, nothing. He basically went and got teed up for that. That's ridiculous. That's terrible officiating. Luka Doncic was thrown out of a game for two quick techs right after Jason Kidd was thrown out of a game for two quick techs. I mean, you can't even say anything. Now, granted, I don't know what they said. I wasn't on the court, so maybe those ejections were justified, but I don't know, man. There's some quick triggers. And there's this whole thing with the NBA last 2-minute report that's come out recently, right? And the reason the NBA releases this last 2-minute report is for betting purposes and to prevent point shaving or something against betting or blah, blah. I don't understand it very well. All I know is I don't like it because every time the NBA releases a 2-minute report for a Bulls game, it says that they
Oh,
screw them.
we may have.
Nope, you're still on,
Oh,
buddy. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you just fine and see you just fine.
okay.
Um, there's been at least 3 times this season where the NBA has released the last 2-minute report the day after a Bulls game where they said, well, that call should have went for the Bulls, and those are 3 games they lost. 2 to Cleveland Cavaliers, one where DeMar DeRozan was fouled, but again, that one, you let the players decide that one. I'm not so mad about that one. But the other one was the Donovan Mitchell 71-point game that I was talking about. At the end of regulation, he had, well, let's say before that putback layup, he had 55 points, I believe. Still, an incredible performance and 2 off his previous career high of 57. He shot a free throw to miss intentionally to try to get a putback, which he did successfully. However, that play should have never happened because as the free throw shooter, you got to let the ball hit the rim before you dive in and get it. And he didn't do that, and they didn't call it. Amazing play by Donovan Mitchell. And props to him, he got away with it. If they don't call it, it's legal, right? But little things like that, I don't know, just rub me the wrong way.
No, and I get that 100%. It's like they're calling the wrong things and they're calling the wrong things and they're not calling the right things. It's like opposite. It's almost like it's opposite day sometimes with these refs, and it's gotten so much worse. And part of that I think has been because there's just been a lot more exposure, and they've just, I don't want to say they've been exposed more, but there's just a lot of holes with reffing that have been shown more throughout the league and how it's progressed. So I think that maybe as we're progressing, we're also seeing some of those errors and flaws with reffing, and maybe it can be improved. Again, maybe Kwame Brown, I'm serious, maybe he can come in and change the game. Maybe that'll be his claim to fame. You never know. I think we need more refs that were former NBA players. I'm going to say that right now. I think we need a lot more refs that at least have more of a background with playing, because they'll understand, especially if they've been out of the league for 5-10 years. They played in that era when it was a little bit more intense. They played with more. So I think I would like to see more. I think it's awesome. All jokes aside, I think it's awesome that Kwame Brown is pursuing that, because I think we need to see more of that. So maybe an improvement would be more, former NBA eyes or former, basketball. Just maybe we get an influx of that and we get more of that, because that I think would help, because they know what's right and what's not, because they were on that court, 5-10 years ago, whenever it was. So I think getting more former NBA players would be a key to helping the ref problem.
I love that. I love that idea, Montana. And I think there's Haywood Workman and Leon Wood, both of those guys who are currently NBA officials who played in the NBA for multiple years. Leon Wood, draft class of 84, same draft class as Charles Barkley, Michael Jordan, Hakeem Olajuwon. Great documentary on NBA TV, the 84 draft, highlights Leon Wood there too, if you guys haven't seen it. But it would be interesting, Smoke. He might cry. You might be right there. It'd be interesting. I think he might be the tallest ref that they have in the NBA if he's out there first. But I totally agree to have some more former players out there. They know the speed of the game. They know what to look for. They've played the game. They've been in the trenches. They know what to look for. So all for that. And again, NBA officials have a tough job. Don't get me wrong. If you've been to an NBA game and sat somewhere close to the court, you see how fast these guys are. Imagine having to officiate it. So I don't envy him, but at the same time, I know that the officiating has to get better. Something that always gets better week over week is our favorite game show here on the interwebs. It is NBA Player or Time. Yes, sir. For those that, look at him. He's ready to go, folks.
Oh, I'm ready.
For those who regularly follow Well Beyond the Arc, you know how the game is played, but in case you're new, we will go over the rules anyway. Every week, I give Montana the name of 5 individuals, and he has to tell me whether or not those are the names of a current or former NBA player or someone else from a completely different profession. It could be a European politician. It could be a WWE star. It could be famous ballerinas. It could be literally anything. It could be Santa Claus or Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer and the other reindeer in Santa's army, whatever you want to call it. It's just a random topic that I pick up day of, and Montana, to his point, is one of the best guessers that I've ever met in my life. He has 92 of 125. That's just under a 75% clip on what he's come out and said, straight guesses. So if Montana gets a question correct, you will hear this sound.
Victory!
Thank you once again, Johnny Drama. And if he gets it incorrect, you will hear this sound. The sound and the Jordan finger wag at Dikembe Mutombo is absolutely perfect for that. Montana, you ready to go? How you feeling, buddy?
I'm ready. I made my New Year's resolution was not to lose this year. And that's not just in this, that's in anything, but I'm not going to lose. I'm going 5 for 5 until the whole year. 5 for 5s, man. Let's get it started right now. I'm confident.
I like it. I like that confidence. I like that energy. I don't know if you'll still have that energy after I give you what the topic is, though.
All right. Maybe
I'm
not
that every week.
More.
You say that every week, but it's okay. Don't worry. We're staying on topic, though, because this week's, and we might have done this one before, but we're going to do it again if that's the case, is NBA player or NBA referee.
Okay. I'm assuming I'm not going to hear Donahue. That's probably not going to be a name that I hear.
Yeah, I can tell you that right now. He is not one of the 5 names you're going to hear. So the only hint I will give you, and yes, folks, I'm giving him a hint. Actually, I'll give you 2 hints. The players that may or may not be mentioned played from the year 2000 or to present, which I've been trying to keep that fair for you. And any official's name that's included in the list is an NBA official this season.
Okay. Well, I don't know any of the NBA official names this season except for like 3, so I don't know if that's going to help me, but we'll see.
If you know these guys, I will be, if you know, well, whatever. We'll find out if you know these guys. All right. Name number 1, Montana. Is this the name of a current or former NBA player or NBA official? The name is Musa Daguerre. I'm probably mispronouncing it, but Musa Daguerre.
Ref.
Victory!
That's off. He's off to a good start, folks. Musa Daguerre is a NBA official, as Montana mentioned. He wears number 28, has been an official for the NBA since 2018. I pointed him out and put him on here because of his terrible, this is the worst call I saw all break. A blocking foul against DeMar DeRozan against the Atlanta Hawks, 75 feet away from the basket with 2 seconds left to go in a half, and teed him up for looking at him. So thank you, Musa Daguerre. 1 for 1. Name number 2. Is this the name of an NBA player or NBA official? The name is Zach Collins. Zach Collins.
I'm going to go with NBA player.
Victory!
That would be a good choice. Zach Collins currently plays for Greg Popovich in the San Antonio Spurs, currently averaging 9.5 points per game, 5.7 rebounds, attended Gonzaga University. We get the point. He's an NBA player.
That's why I knew it. My favorite player.
There you go. Name number 3. Is this an NBA player, current or former, or an NBA official? His name is Matt Boland. Matt Boland.
I'm going to go with ref.
Victory!
He's heating up. He's heating up. Matt Boland is an NBA official. Wears number 18. He's been an official in the NBA since 1999, and all I have to say about him is he's decent. He's decent. 3 for 3. Name number 4. Is this the name of a current or former NBA player or NBA referee? His name is TJ Ford. TJ Ford.
Oh, man. I'm going to go with NBA player.
Victory!
If the hairs in the back of your necks aren't standing up, what is wrong with you? He's 4 for 4. TJ Ford is a former NBA player hailing from the University of Texas. Played in the NBA from 2004 to 2012, averaging 11.2 points per game, 5.8 assists for Jay's Milwaukee Bucks, Toronto Raptors, Indiana Pacers, and San Antonio Spurs. All right. We got one more.
All right.
Is this an NBA player, Montana, or an NBA official? The name is Derek Richardson. Derek Richardson.
Oh man, I'm gonna go with ref.
Flawless victory.
I
I
wasn't
gotta.
right all year.
Derek Richardson wears number 63. Has been an NBA official since the year 1995, which was not that long ago, that feels like. Solid veteran ref. Not great, but solid. Montana, congrats on a 5 for 5. The man, it's on a New Year's resolution. He's now 97 of 130. He is 1 for 1 on 5 for 5s for the year. And yeah, I'm going to have to make this harder for you.
It's just guessing. I'm telling you. I don't know.
I think my New Year's resolution is to go to Vegas with Montana. All right. We're going to pause for a quick break here. Instead of our weekly ad from the Yankee and the Brit, we're going to show you some scenes from Real Talk's upcoming documentary. Check it out.
5-10 years from now, they're gonna wish it was American Cosa Nostra. 5-10 years from now, they're gonna miss John Gotti.
And all of a sudden on the news, I'm hearing, Paul Castellano, mob boss, is killed outside Sparks Steakhouse. And I'm thinking like, wow, who could have done this?
Shit, John, this is bigger than killing the fucking president.
Hey, you think I was put in this earth to make them rich and me poor? We're gonna do a hit now. We're gonna do a real hit. We're going back. Yeah. Back to some real in-your-face Cosa Nostra. Out in front on a line. Make them sit back and watch a volcano blow. You with me?
I'm with you, John. All the way to the finish.
Big Paul Castellano, reputed godfather of the Gambino family, was on his way to a Manhattan steakhouse. As he stepped from his black Lincoln, 3 men wearing fur hats and trench coats suddenly appeared, pulled guns, pumped 6 bullets into Castellano and 6 into his top capo, Thomas Bilotti, and then calmly walked away.
The old-time mob bosses, you say, they rule with an iron fist, covered with a velvet glove. Well, Gotti saw no need for the glove. That's what it came down to.
I think a final thought may be a quote from Big Paul Castellano. This life of ours, this is a wonderful life. If you can get through life like this and get away with it, hey, that's great. But it's very unpredictable. There are so many ways you can screw it up. They screwed up in the end.
Wow. Okay. Well, be sure to check that out. That looks really cool. What I got out of it, other than the Gotti documentary, that I'm excited for that, for Real Talk. There, and that's what happens when you subscribe to the Yankee and the Brit Sports Group. You never know what we're gonna come up with. What I got out of that is I need to get myself an ascot. That one dude with the ascot. I don't know. The whole thing was cool, but then that stuck out to me. I need to get myself an ascot.
I'm feeling it. Let's both. I'm getting one too.
All right. One of these days, we're both going to show up on the show wearing ascots. Oh, that's great. All right. Well, let's get into the good, bad, and the ugly for this week. And we have plenty to choose for over the past couple of weeks to make up for lost time. Montana, I mean, we talked about plenty of we should do that in every show in a basketball jersey and an ascot. That'll be the well beyond the arc uniform going forward. Montana, what do you got as your good for this week, man?
Well, my good, and again, this is we've been kind of going, rightfully so. The Mavs have looked terrible. Well, they're 4th in the West right now, last I checked, and that's highly because of Luka Doncic's play, but it's also because we have seen the role players on that team step up and show, and we're seeing more than we've seen. Now, is it perfect? Can they win a championship with just Luka? Absolutely not. Will they make the playoffs? Absolutely. Will they be a top 5 team? I think they can be, even with just Luka being that main guy. But to have a championship in Dallas, they need more than Luka. But for what they have right now, They look great. Luka's helping them win. His level of play is top tier, and it is showing in their record. So I've got to give it to the Mavs, because just last episode, I think they were not in top 10, I don't think, or they were right
They're in the
at
play-in situation between that
Yeah,
7 and 10 range. Yeah.
So this is huge. This is a big. So I've got to give it to them, and specifically, again, we've talked about Luka, but specific shout out to him because he's a big reason that they're even in that spot.
Yeah, I mean, that's the obvious good, right? Between that unprecedented stat line that he had the one game of 60, 21, and 10, like we talked about. Man, I got to give it to Donovan Mitchell, even though I put an asterisk next to that performance. 71 points, but 71 points and 11 assists, being responsible for 99 points, the second most in the history of the game. Kobe Bryant can't say that with his 81-point game. Some of these other guys with 70-point games can't say that. And Devin Booker's 70 recently was in a loss, a double-digit loss to the Boston Celtics, mind you. So begrudgingly, I got to give it to Donovan Mitchell, even though I put an asterisk next to it. But I do give him the credit for that performance. What about your bad?
So my bad's got to be Kevin Durant going down with an injury, because that Nets team looks great. And I'm not going to say they've looked just great because of him, because I'm going to be honest, that team as a whole has really woken up. I think that is a team that has had one of the quickest awakenings I've seen in a while, because they woke up. They woke up from being on losing streaks to being, I believe, they're second in the East right now. I mean, they are no team to mess with. But of course, Kevin Durant went down as expected to miss a month. Luckily, it's only a month. Hopefully that is what that is held to. But I don't 100% think the momentum they built will be taken down just by Kevin Durant going out, because they've had other good performances. But let's be honest, who's been the guy that's been really pushing them over the top and winning games? It's been Kevin Durant. So my bad has to be that Kevin Durant injury, because it's bad for the Nets, because they're finally kind of looking like a decent team. And now that's all out of the window potentially.
And believe it or not, we're going to talk about the Brooklyn Nets on Well Beyond the Arc here coming up shortly. But yeah, no, agree with that. My bad, I'm going to go a different route with this. And I don't know if you guys caught this a couple weeks ago. Wally Szczerbiak, who is now an analyst for MSG, basically the Knicks TV network, New York Knicks TV network, made some eye-popping comments, eyebrow-raising comments, I guess you can say. And he's got some thick eyebrows to be saying this, as it is, about the Pacers' Tyrese Halliburton. Now, Wally Szczerbiak, Wally World, played in the NBA for years, was a former All-Star, played with the Minnesota Timberwolves, Celtics, Seattle Supersonics, known as a good shooter. Had some critical comments of Tyrese Halliburton when the Pacers were playing the Knicks recently, and basically was saying, you can't have this type of shot selection from a quote-unquote so-called all-star. Now, mind you, Tyrese Halliburton is third year in the league. He has been tearing it up for the surprising Indiana Pacers. He's averaging 19 points a game and 10 assists. I think he's even leading the NBA in assists per game, if I'm not mistaken. But some of these comments from Wally Szczerbiak were just off the wall, unprovoked. I don't know if he has some beef with Tyrese Halliburton. I don't know if Tyrese Halliburton slept with his wife. I have no idea. But all Tyrese Halliburton did was come back after those comments and have a performance of 33 points and a win over the Boston Celtics. So, Wally, I know he ate his words after that, but that was a take that did not go very well. So that's my bad for this week. What about the ugly for you?
So I've been holding off on this because I'm like, maybe they're going to turn it around. Maybe they can turn. No. The Houston Rockets are my ugly, because they are 1-9 in their last 10 games. And they have pretty solid talent on that roster. They should not be going on that 1-9 in the last 10 games, because even with the situation they're in, of course, James Harden being gone, all that, there's a lot of stuff that transpired that brought that team down from that top tier Western Conference team. But they're starting to have the talent that we should at least see them winning more than what they're 10-30 on the season. That's, I mean, my Lakers might be not looking great. Your Bulls might not be looking great, but at least we're not 10-30 on the year. I mean,
let's say that again.
It's all about perspective, because that is just awful. That is terrible. In the Western Conference, it's all pretty close, but that's not that. They're by far the worst team. So I've got to give it to the Rockets specifically for that 1-9 in their last 10 games. That's just abysmal.
Can't disagree with that, but I'm going to go with my ugly for another team that's 1-9 in their last 10 games, and that's my buddy Josh's Phoenix Suns. Sorry, Josh, I got to go here, but they've lost 8 in a row, and right now I believe they're sitting 9th in the West, and this is a team that had the best record in the NBA last year, 2 years removed from a finals appearance. Now, they've lost Chris Paul for some time to some injury, and now Chris Paul came back, and now Devin Booker is probably going to be out until the All-Star game, and they just look lost offensively. There's definitely something missing from this team in the few games I've watched from them, even when they had Booker and Chris Paul on the floor. Not being able to utilize DeAndre Ayton as well. Mikal Bridges not hitting as many of the shots as he was hitting and not getting as many defensive stops as he was getting last year. Jay Crowder hasn't played a second for this team and still is on the trade block. It's just, this is a different Phoenix Suns team. Not as talented, not as deep as before. And who knows? I mean, we might be talking about the Suns as hopefully a play-in team at this point, but we'll see what happens. But they've just been ugly lately. So here's hoping they can turn it around. Well, we promised you the Brooklyn Nets talk, and surprise, surprise, here on Well Beyond the Arc, we're going to give it to you. The Nets, to their credit, and we have to give credit where credit's due, Montana, they've kept it solely about basketball, and they've been winning. And Jacques Vaughn might have something to do with it. Maybe he doesn't, but all I know is they are 25-9 since he took over. Kyrie and KD have been remarkably and historically efficient. Ben Simmons, but he's not getting rigged over the coals lately. Yeah, the KD injury that you mentioned hurts a little bit, but what about the Brooklyn Nets?
I mean, I'm going to be honest. It's not that I'm a hater on the Brooklyn Nets, but it's just been where they've been at. They've earned that position on the show. They've earned what we've talked about. They've earned what we've said. But they're a team that has turned it around. The transition, let's just talk first of all about the very seamless Kyrie transition back to that team. There's been nothing in the media about him really at all. And what that to me, like the transition of him going back to that team, we knew his play style would be great. We knew that Kyrie coming back would be just fine playing wise. But I was a little bit worried about that microscope being solely on his return because of everything that had been going on and that would take away from the basketball and we'd see more Brooklyn Nets drama. And we didn't see that. So that right there helped them out. But the real thing that helped them out, Seth Curry's in, and Seth Curry's having some great games. We're seeing them. It's not even Kevin Durant. And the fact that earlier when I said that I'm not so sold that they'll lose their momentum is because they don't just look great because of Kevin Durant. Arguably that they look great because of who's been around Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant looks great, but you're only as great as the players you have around you. And I am seeing a lot of these players step up and elevate their play or / just come back from injuries. And it's making a big difference. This is the Brooklyn Nets team that we were supposed to see. Did I want to see it? No, I never wanted to see it, but we were supposed to see it. I truly think this is that team. They're 9-1 in the last 10 games, and they are absolutely cementing themselves as one of the top Eastern Conference teams. And if they can continue this element of play without Kevin Durant, watch out. That it's over. I mean, it's not over, but regular season wise, they're on a run. If they can go on this run and keep it up without KD, man.
Kenny Smith has entered the chat. It's over. I made a mistake. Jacques Vaughn is 25-8 since taking over for the fired Steve Nash. I mean, I don't disagree with anything you said. I think that getting Seth Curry back helped. I think getting Joe Harris back helped. I think that TJ Warren, who started, missed a few games to start the season, he's been a solid pickup. Has played solidly for the Nets in a reserve role player role. I think this team is deeper than most think. With Kevin Durant out, that's going to hurt because he has played himself into the MVP conversation, but he's played remarkably. But again, I can't stress this enough. Kyrie and KD playing an efficient brand of basketball. And these guys, you haven't heard anything as far as anything else drama-wise. It's only been about basketball. They focused on their craft, and they've done a great job of that. And like you said, this is the Nets team we're supposed to see. And you know what? For the league's sake, I'm glad we're seeing it. I don't want to see it during playoffs, especially if the Nets take on my beloved Bulls. But hey, good for them. Give credit where credit is due. We give criticism where it's due, but we're also giving credit where credit's due. And speaking of credit, giving credit where credit is due, LeBron James, I think you may have heard of him, Montana. He is only 422 points away from breaking Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's 39-year-old record for the most career regular season points. I know he missed last night's game, but I still have him. At least I've calculated that he could break it the week of February 7th. And there's 2 home games that the Lakers have that week. Excuse me. So if you have tickets to those games, you can either resell them or go to the game because you might see history. Montana, what say you about LeBron on the brink of passing Kareem?
I think it's great. I think it's great for the organization because the top 2 scorers in history are Lakers. It doesn't matter if LeBron hasn't been a Laker his whole career or as long as Kareem was a Laker. You're seeing LeBron come in, and LeBron's been a big bright spot. In an organization with a lot of turmoil that's gone on since Kobe retired, LeBron has been arguably the brightest spot. So I think he means a lot to this organization, and I think it'll be a big night, and I think it'll mean a lot to him. And not to mention, there's special elements with Kobe Bryant. There's so much. This is special. This is huge. I think this would be a really special night. I'm really wish I could know which game. I wish I could predict the future and know which game it is so I get those tickets, because I would fly from Hawaii to wherever that game is played. But I bet you those tickets are going to be insane. If it's expected to be that game, those prices are going to go up. But I think that it's big for the Lakers. But I also don't think it's an excuse or anything that's like should be looked at instead of playoffs and championship. Like, it shouldn't be kind of we didn't make the playoffs, but at least LeBron did this. I don't want that to happen. I'm not going to be happy if that's what happens. But I am happy for LeBron, and I'm happy he's in the purple and gold when he gets it, because that's big. The top 2 scorers in history, and that's going to stay like that for quite some time. I'm not sure if we're going to see someone, eclipse that record for a while, if ever, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I don't remember, but I wasn't born yet.
They were saying that about Kareem, weren't they?
They were saying that about Kareem, and here we are. I know they asked Luka about it because they're like, well, Luka Doncic is the guy who can possibly do it. Luka's like, I don't want to play that long. Look, give credit where credit's due again. And this is coming from a guy who considers himself a pass first player. And here he is. It's just a testament to his consistency, his longevity, his ability to play at a elite level for the majority of basically his whole career. We're on season 20 here. And, he's not showing signs of slowing down anytime soon. So you know what? I'm going to say something I never really say. Best of luck to you, LeBron. It is going to be cool to see history when it happens. And I'm telling you, Montana, if you're trying to predict when it's going to happen, I think it's going to be that second or third week of February. I think it's going to happen before the All-Star game. So that's just me doing some quick math. All right. Well, we're wrapping this thing up, putting a bow on this episode of Well Beyond the Arc. Glad you guys can join us. Montana, let's tell the folks again real quick here where else they can find your work.
Yeah, so you can find me on YouTube, The Connor and Heffernan Show, and then you can also find that on Spotify, and then you can find the Purple and Gold Zone on Spotify, and then it is on that the YouTube channel the other YouTube channel I have is The Connor and Heffernan Show. That is the YouTube channel name, and you can find Purple and Gold Zone and my Connor and Heffernan Show both on there. So check that out. Make sure you sub. Trying to grow that channel. I think I'm at like 105 subs right now, trying to get that up to 200 as fast as possible.
Yeah, everybody make sure you subscribe. And you can find my sports blog site, the Sports Page Blog, at thesportspageblog.com. Be sure to check that out. Appreciate all the web traffic we can get there. And also, as of a week or two ago, joined and partnered with a news website called usanews.com. It's basically a trending news website without any politics whatsoever, just trending news articles. I am partnering with them to provide them with sports content, basically the same stuff that you'll see on my blog website. So excited about that and appreciate you guys checking that out. Well, we will see you guys again very, very soon. Very happy to hear that Bills safety DeMar Hamlin is back in Buffalo, improving. Get well soon, big man. I'm not even doing a heart well, but